Good evening, everybody. This is Divided We Stand. It's Saturday, December the 5th at 8:29 Eastern Standard Time. Sorry for the delay. Unfortunately, we had to deal with a bit of a panic attack and calm somebody down, and I think we've got him under control.
You are very calm now, Brian. I would agree.
So pay no mind to the voice behind the screen. First of all, I'd like to just quickly mention at the outset, as a reminder to everybody, that you can see our broadcast on YouTube and on Facebook, as well as Twitch, Periscope, and VK. So you have a lot of different avenues. We suggest that you watch on YouTube because the resolution is a lot better. So if you're watching from Facebook now, our suggestion would be to click the YouTube link. And you can participate just as you can on Facebook in terms of commentary. So we really, really appreciate that. And again, if you're unfamiliar with our page and you're watching on YouTube, we are Divided We Stand. And let me just click a few things off here. We are a partisan group, and we do it for a reason, because we believe the country's divided, and we believe that we're on the right side, and the right side of history. So if you are interested, please pop by Divided We Stand on Facebook, and I'll approve your membership, and you'll become one of us. So there we go. In any case, I'd like to greet all of our wonderful guests tonight, and we have a nice lineup for everybody. And to begin with, in the upper right-hand corner is Ryan Velez, a chess player extraordinaire and teacher from Louisville, Kentucky. Good evening, Ryan.
Good evening. Thank you for having me on again.
It's quite a pleasure. And in the lower right-hand corner is the man with the cavalry, Sergeant George Linnon, here to save the day. Colleague of mine, good friend. George, it's great to see you. How are you?
I'm doing good, Brian. Everybody else? Interesting night tonight.
It certainly is. And then finally, last but not least, the guy who has nothing better to do at night, and who had quite a panic attack 15 minutes ago, but I assure you he's okay. David Price. Dave, great to see you. How are you?
Brian, I just have a question. You know where you were having that groinal problem down there? Is the medicine working for you?
Okay. Dave,
I'm worried about you, Brian.
Only you would know, okay? Something like that.
Okay,
we're off to a bad start already. It sounds like we have Lenny Bruce on our show tonight. So, but in all seriousness, and I'm getting a bit of a feedback, so I'm going to take my earbuds out for a second. Ladies and gentlemen, what we're going to do is this. We are going to have a little bit of a different format tonight. In the beginning, what we plan on doing, the first segment of our show, we are going to show you different clips of some important news that occurred during the week. And as we go through each clip, we're going to have commentary about that clip. And we'll all be giving input and, our own perspective into what we see. And then, of course, you're welcome to add commentary at home, because, as you know, we do read all the comments and we do post them. And then after that, when we get into the second segment of the show, it'll be a free form on the general political scope of things right now in the United States, and anything that would be important to be added to that. So we'll begin right now, and let's take a look-see at our first video. Now, I want to make sure everybody can see this. Now, this is Melissa Carone. She was a guest. I don't want to say testifying because that would give the idea that she was under oath, but she did speak in front of the Michigan State Legislature. And, well, let's let you look for yourselves. Wait.
The poll book is completely off. Completely off. That poll, I'd say that poll book is off by over 100,000. That poll book. Why don't you look at the registered voters on there? How many registered voters are on there? Do you even know the answer to that?
No, I guess I'm trying to get to the bottom of this here.
Zero. There's zero.
So, my question then is if the
Guess how many? Wait. What about the turnout rate? 120%.
Let's let Representative Johnson ask his question, please.
So the poll book number. Okay, there's two things that could happen here. Either the poll book number, if ballots were counted multiple times, there's two options. Option number one is that the poll book numbers are not going to match.
They don't.
The actual. Not by thousands and thousands of votes. That's not what we see right now.
Take a look again. Take a look again.
Option number two is that they essentially were filling in names of people who didn't vote.
Dead people too?
So is that?
Let's
I guess,
let
is that
Representative Johnson ask his question, and then when
I
he's
thought that
done.
was his answer. Okay.
Well, I guess that's my question here is why we're not seeing the poll book off by 30,000 votes. That's not the case.
What did you guys do? Take it and do something crazy to it?
I'm just saying the numbers are not off by 30,000 votes. So
I know what I
saying
saw.
that they're filling in?
I know what I saw, and I signed something saying that if I'm wrong, I can go to prison. Did you?
Okay,
I'm just trying to ask you a legitimate question here.
Yeah, let's let Representative Johnson ask his question, and then don't interrupt him, and then if you want to respond to it, that's fine. Did you have more, Representative?
Yeah, I guess I just want to keep following back up with the poll book. So are we saying that the poll book is either wildly off or that they are filling in names?
It's wildly off, and dead people voted, and illegals voted.
Okay.
So that's my answer.
So that was just a brief clip from Rudy Giuliani's hearing in Michigan that's happening tonight. And he's cavalcading a bunch of witnesses that have...
All right. We can avoid that. All right, gentlemen. We'll leave it open to you all. And what did you think about Melissa Corona? What was her name? Carone, who is the star witness for the Trump administration.
I think she's horrible. I just do not think that she's credible, saying that dead people voted but having no evidence. And the most important thing I noticed about that hearing that they did is it was a hearing in front of a bunch of politicians at the state level. It was not in a courtroom. And so, I mean, it's just like some kind of strange attempt to destroy people's confidence in the election outcome by, I assume, mostly Republicans. I know there's a Democrat guy or a couple Democrats who were there who spoke, but they were just shut down mostly. But yeah, I thought it was terrible. Like this isn't helping anything. It's just a waste of time.
Well, I saw it as the Republicans trying to pacify that fringe of their party, because they're allowing them. Now, remember, they're not under oath. They're in the room. They're allowing them to express their grievances. And unfortunately, the people who they selected to voice their grievances, she seemed loony. I mean, yeah. She seemed like she has an idea locked in her head. I saw these numbers. There's 30,000 numbers. It's off by 30,000. Dead people are voting. Illegals are voting. Things that are easily debunked. But they're allowing her to put that out in the masses. So that's the second point. The first point, they're allowing the president to get his voice out, to complain. The second thing is now they're contaminating their constituencies. They're getting everybody riled up because this woman is constantly repeating the same lies over and over and over again even though the guy is telling her, look, the book is not off. It's not off by 30,000.
And he's a
And she's like,
Republican.
right, and
is.
then she accuses him of doing something. So that's got to be a deranged person when he's telling, look, it's not off by 30,000. It may be a couple people that it doesn't match up. She said, but what'd you do with the rest of them? Where's the other 30,000? You know, why did they pick her?
Well, that's a good question.
That's
Why
a great
would they
question.
pick her? Especially after the embarrassment that occurred with the Grecian formula with Giuliani.
And she is the woman that they said that no longer has her license to practice law, right? She was removed from the prosecutor's office.
Well, she didn't have
same
any legal degrees. She had an IT degree from some, I don't know, it wasn't like a normal college. It was some tech school where she
Trump
received.
University.
Well, yeah, kind of like that. You know, it's like less than degrees, but she got a 4-year degree, but by default, she got an associate. So she said she had 2 degrees, but she really only had 1, and she got credit for the other. But it was just, it's bizarre. I mean, you would have thought that they would put up a convincing, star witness, but she didn't fare well for herself. How about you, Dave?
Well, yeah, I think you're being a little hard on her. The way I look at it, she is to testifying, in quotes, what Melania Trump is to Christmas decorating. Not very good at it, right? Not very good at it. Now, I don't know where they got her either. I'm guessing. I shouldn't know this, but does anybody know where the hearing was? Hearing again, it was held. The city.
It was in
don't know the city.
Wayne County. I know that. I think.
Okay, so let's say it's Phillipsburg, Wayne County. I don't even know there is a Phillipsburg there. My assumption is that Rudy, a couple of minutes before the hearing, went to the bus station and looked for somebody and said, "Listen, do you know anything about anything?" And she said, "Uh-huh," and then brought her on. I believe this is also I think you missed, Brian, and I'm surprised about that because you're usually pretty sharp. Is this the hearing where Rudy farted not only once, but
I'm going to get
twice?
to that. I'm going to get to that.
Okay,
actually,
this wasn't that hearing. Look.
Actually, it is.
Yeah, I know it is. Now, wait a minute.
I think it
about
is.
this. The President of the United States is probably en route back to D.C. from Georgia. This is the President of the United States. This is the single most powerful man in the world, correct? Or was, before it became, whatever it is now. So he gets
briefcase
on 2 big conferences. One, we go to the Four Seasons Landscaping in Philadelphia, outside Philadelphia, or right, inside Philadelphia, right next to a porn shop that specializes in dildos and a crematorium. And that's the best the president can do? Oh, no, he can do better. He brings in this, whatever that was. Again, she just reminded me, I'm not so sure. I shouldn't be unkind. I'm sure she's very nice when she's sober. But the idea was this. She talked about dead people voting. What I think we just witnessed is a brain dead person trying to get a point across that she knows nothing about. And on top of that, the president's, now look, I farted, you farted, everybody in the world has farted. There's no shame in that. But
except
to do it twice,
when you do it on our show.
It is kind of interesting. Look, I'm going to try to be nice here. And I can't.
All right.
Yeah.
All right.
I'm just it's just to me. I think one thing that George said that resonates with me too is it resonates with my opinion of the situation. Is I think you're right. I think that they are trying to placate this fringe that I don't think they're going to be able to contain. I just think it's going to get out of control. It's already out of control.
Ryan, did it do its job? Because I have a cousin who's a Trumper, and he took that hook, line, and sinker. So if that really is what they're trying to do, just get their base riled up, isn't that in effect a success?
I suppose it is. I mean, I don't disagree with that. I mean, I suppose the strategy could be there. I know a couple people who have taken this stuff hook, line, and sinker too, and I think the only thing that we can say, I said before, I'll say it again, we are experiencing what happens when you devalue education for 40 years or 30 years or however long it's been. And, you know, this is what happens. You have a population who is swayed by the first thing they hear that agrees with what they think. There's no, there's no, there's no thought behind it. It's just, oh, that agrees with what I want, and then that's it. You know, so it's very unfortunate. I wish their strategy wasn't working. I suppose it might be.
And Brian, the point is, it depends. You said, is it working? If Donald Trump's goal is to be president or remain president of the United States, absolutely it's not working. Absolutely. But if his goal, as kind of George and Ryan, I think rightfully so said, if it's to sow discord and make people skeptical of politics and religion and rile up his base and do all of that, I think the saddest comment, I mean, I wish it was original from me because it is, it isn't. The saddest comment of all this and this whole election, in 2016, there's no question that the Russians interfered with the election. That's the only person who doesn't believe that is Donald Trump. And I think he even believes it. I don't know. It doesn't matter. But in this election, I'm going to believe that people said this was one of the most clean elections in the history of American elections. And I think indeed when all this is done and Donald Trump is put out to pasture or put into jail or runs to Russia or whatever he's going to do after this, we'll find this out. But think about this. The Russians didn't have to do anything to destroy American democracy. The man elected as president of the United States did a better job than Putin could imagine that any of his operatives could do.
And we're going
to
get to the thing, especially when we get to the Pentagon.
We are going to get to Rudy farting, though. I'm going
to get that one out of the way right now. Right. Okay, but I do want to get to George for the Pentagon after that.
Brian, before you got 1 minute, one second.
All right, so let's go with Rudy. Okay, here we go.
He also talked at the event, and a lot of people are saying that they heard something while he was speaking. Now, I swear, we did not do anything to this clip, okay? Just watch the clip and listen closely, see if you hear anything.
I will ask that he be disciplined for that. First of all, the answer that I gave you is they didn't bother to interview a single witness, just like you.
Yo! Can we go 1 week without something leaking out of Rudy Giuliani?
Well, I mean, really, is he like, your old grandfather who just can't keep his air in, and they have this guy parading in front of a legislature doing that. And then you'll notice Jenna Ellis has to look like this.
You win.
Yeah, right. But I think, I don't know if you agree with me, but it seems to me that she was actually trying to say, I didn't do this. He did this. Like,
She looked like a squirrel who found a nut. She's like, ooh.
He did find a nut, but it was sitting next to her the whole time.
Right. And he keeps screwing this up. Now it's obviously on all of the shows. It's on our show. You would think after the last event, where he was leaking hair dye, that Trump would be furious with him. I mean, but has he run out of lawyers like this? Because he's just embarrassing himself. I mean, for a couple hours, it looked like it was a normal hearing of some sort. But once people start looking at it and playing it again, they hear things. And then we saw what happened with Melissa Carone. He's destroyed everything that he's tried to create. Although, again, as we discussed, it may still be effective. if people on his side believe it. But
Well-
you would think that it's a parody of mistakes here. That we'd say you're just humiliating yourself.
Well, first of all, Brian, I wish you were a little bit more aware of culture. I mean, you always say, I studied pop culture. I think you're a little bit behind here. I know from my sources that the Academy Award this year, for the first time ever, is going to award Best Fart Doubled in a hearing involving the President of the United States. Let me repeat that. There will be an Academy Award for the best two farts issued during a hearing involving the President of the United States. Rudy's got that sewed up. I mean, you guys are laughing at him, but when he gets that Oscar and goes to the Four Seasons Landscaping to spend the night, he's golden. He's golden.
Okay. Well, I don't want to, spend too much time on this flatulence issue, but I'm going to take these earbuds out for a second here because they're just driving me nuts. But I do want to get to the Pentagon, and I'm going to play this clip from Rachel Maddow's show on MSNBC. I believe it was last night. And I consider this a serious issue, and this is where, George, we're going to really need your input for this. So I'm going to play this. It'll be about 2 minutes long, maybe 3 tops, and we'll make some commentary afterwards. Okay?
Who will talk to them about what's going on right now in some of the most sensitive and important national security stuff that is potentially exploitable by foreign adversaries during presidential transitions, right? I mean, Biden's transition team is not getting briefed, we now know, on the spy versus spy stuff that happens between us and Russia and us and China and Iran and all the rest of it. The NSA can't brief the incoming Biden administration, because the new Trump appointees at the Pentagon have decided that can't happen. The new Trump appointees at the Pentagon, not a distinguished bunch, but rushed in there at the very last second. Today, Trump fired the majority of people on something called the Defense Business Board. It's a sort of important Pentagon advisory board. Why did he want to get rid of all of the sort of business executives and grandees on this board? I don't know, but he replaced them with, I kid you not, guys like Corey Lewandowski is now on the Defense Business Board. Remember who Corey Lewandowski is? He was one of the Trump campaign managers, the one who was fired for being too punchy. Also, David Bossie was just put on this board. David Bossie is the political dirty trickster guy who Trump tried to put in charge of his post-election lawsuits this year before somebody told him that actually David Bossie is not a lawyer. And then David Bossie got COVID, so he couldn't do it anyway. But now he'll be on the Defense Business Board, along with Corey Lewandowski, when Biden's team takes over at the Pentagon, along with all the senior staff who Trump moved heaven and earth to bring in for the last few weeks here, right? These guys at their senior level Pentagon desks commenting angrily on YouTube videos about hydroxychloroquine, braiding their beard hair and organizing like fire-breathing open carry protests against the Illuminati, right? I mean, this is what they're doing at the Pentagon. The United States military is the largest and most capable military on the planet. The United States government is in the driver's seat of the richest and most powerful and most capable country on the planet. But it turns out that if you have terrible people running those entities and running them poorly, it doesn't really matter how big and powerful you are on paper or how big and powerful you might have been in the past. You can be rendered completely helpless and impotent by just having in the right place the wrong people who are terrible at what they do. That is, I mean, a lot of what we'll remember about the Trump era is the outrage, but what we will be living with from the Trump era is the failure, the deliberate, rank failure.
Right, George.
The first thing that comes to my mind is his inner circle is so contaminated and tight right now that he only is relying on people that he can trust. And the bad thing about it is a normal president would trust somebody who is capable of making productive decisions. He's relying on people who are reiterating the issues that he's saying. I keep talking about the echo chamber. And I keep saying every day that my grandmother told me this a long time ago. Birds of a feather flock together. And right now, of course, he's going to pick Corey. And of course, he's going to pick the other. First of all, how you going to pick somebody to be on your legal team and not know that he's not a lawyer?
Right.
So that right there, when you tell American people, I hire only the best people. I hire only the best people. And then you select somebody who doesn't even have the credentials to be in that position. So we made a mistake as a country by electing a con man, electing somebody into a position that he only had one thing in mind: how much money and notoriety he could gain from this. I mean, he just made $150 million by losing. What loser gets $150 million?
It's 170 million.
But now it's over. It's over. But literally a week after, he collected 150. Like he can do whatever he wants to do with this money. He got $150 million straight out of the pot, what people sent to him, and he put a disclosure statement that the money can be used for whatever discretion the campaign determines. So this legal fund, he's not paying real lawyers. I promise you. Rudy's the only one of those representatives going to these courtrooms. He's the only one getting paid. The rest of these people are people they picking off the street. So of course, Corey has been in his camp forever, and you put him in the Pentagon, and just the damage that these individuals can hide in the next 30 days, and that's what I think it is. It's a process of hiding things. So if you want to hide something, you put the people in place who participated in the actual activities, and who they beholden to.
Right. Now, George, from your perspective, what do you think the generals are thinking right now, being in a position where they have to kind of answer to some of the people? Just your own idea about it.
Normally, in my lifetime, I'm 52 years old. In my lifetime, generals answer to men and women who they respect because they have proven that they deserve to be in that position. You don't become a general, an admiral, or even a colonel, a full-birth colonel in the military, unless you earned it. So for these men and women to be receiving direction for somebody who's in it for their own self, it's dangerous. It's dangerous. And unfortunately, if we don't bring stuff like this to people's attention, because my two sons are in the military, they're going to do exactly what one in the Navy, one in the Air Force, they're going to do exactly what their superiors tell them to do. And if their superiors are getting information from corrupt directions, how do we determine what's a lawful command and an unlawful command when it's coming from the very top? You know, that's the one defense you can get over. If somebody give you an unlawful command and it's in the Uniform Code of Military Justice, we call that the UMCJ, and that governs all military actions. If the UMCJ says, do not do this, then do not do this. So if your commander tells you, hey, there's some people there, they don't have guns, but we're going to kill them, you can say, hey, that's an unlawful act. That's an unlawful command. We join the military. We're told you can't break this law. But the people that Trump was put it in place, remember, he said, I'm smarter than all the generals. But he has no idea about how the war college works, leadership works, and he's appointing people in there who are...
Sorry about that, folks. Dangerous. My volume just kicked out, one of those things. So what I think
so
we
have to really pay attention to everything that's going on. Everything.
Okay. Hold on for a second, folks. One of those days, my volume from my phone came on out of nowhere. So hold on. I'll be with you. All right.
Brian, You're doing well, but if you keep this up, Donald Trump is going to want to appoint you
Check.
Director
Okay, good.
of Communications.
Okay.
So please
I'm on
get
again.
A little bit. Please get a. I don't want to lose you on this show, but if you keep this up, he only appoints
Listen,
the best people.
you're not going to believe this. Okay. I saw that my iTunes was not on, but all of a sudden, Ian Jury's Sex and Drugs and Rock and Roll came on blasting, and it was coming from my phone. I'm thinking, poor George, this is going. Now, I hope you didn't hear any music.
We did not.
But that's all I could hear, and I couldn't get it off. Then it stopped. I thought, phew, and then it started up again. So we're okay. So, all right. Did anybody else want to make any more comments about the Pentagon?
Yeah, I will. Judy Washington asked, can't Biden replace them with his own team? And I think that's mostly true in a lot of these positions. But I think what Trump is doing is he lost the election, so he's going to make as big of a mess as he can possibly get away with making so that he can delay the Biden team into doing anything. They're just going to be cleaning up messes for 4 years. And I also think that this whole notion, let me start over. I think that Trump says what he's doing. He always says the opposite of what he's doing. So if he says he hires the best people, he's not going to be hiring the best people. If he says that, he's going to do student loan reform, he ain't going to do student loan reform. I just pick any topic. Whatever he says, he's going to do the opposite. That's how he is. He's a liar. We all know that. And I think that, when he talks about the deep state and all this crazy stuff that goes on, I think he's literally trying to make a deep state. I don't know how long it's going to go for, but if you install a bunch of these idiots, these loyalists across, different parts of the government, what else can be the purpose other than to destroy reasonable institutions like George was talking about? Like, you got to earn your way in. He's just skipping the earning part and putting jerks in charge. Or you're trying to create some ridiculous deep state. Like, I don't understand the point. My guess is he's trying to make money off it somehow, because that's his only motivation to do anything in life.
There you are, and I think that is it. Some wise people down here said, "Watch, there's going to be a couple major military deals between now and January 20th, and the reported figure will not be the accurate figure." Now, I don't know if that's true or not, but I do think also, and George, I hadn't really thought about this, and I don't know even if you were headed with this, but it gave me an idea. Not only just destroy the military, and I have a lot of confidence if everyone has the integrity, George, that you do, in terms of your military, in terms of what your sons do, in terms of the military people I've met here in my 10 years in Washington, I'm confident that they're not going to do Trump's bidding unless it is something that they determine to be legal and also moral. Now, remember, we have to look to history to this. Richard Nixon, in his final days, was given the wrong nuclear codes for fear that he would cause a nuclear war. That's not conjecture. That's accurate. It's been confirmed. So I'm assuming that military people who are extreme, the modern army. I mean, ladies and gentlemen, I never thought I would be saying this as a from 1960s, hell no, we won't go person. The American military today, the people are amazing. They're just simply amazing. Educated, dedicated, sworn to uphold the Constitution. They will do that. What I'm wondering, and I think everybody had a good point here, but what I'm kind of wondering too, is Trump's scam also, it is involving money, Ryan, because you're right, he doesn't do anything about money, but it's also hiding some evidence, that exists somewhere in these offices. So I think, I've been doing a little side commenting here on Divided We Stand. I've got one more thing to go in terms of cons, but the con that I spoke about last is what we're seeing now. This is a scorched earth, making it as difficult for Joe Biden and the Democrats as he can coming in. And the second thing is there is another motivation, money, power, greed, but revenge is a big motive.
There's a small echo.
Or a large echo. It's off, Brian.
Gotcha.
So the idea of it is, um, again, I'm going to echo one theme tonight. We're saying
Seems to be the
normal,
word of the day. Echo.
We're talking about normal human beings, the way we react, or the way we think normal human beings react. I'd love to say something different. I'd like us to be united. There's 73 million Americans, and now up to 74 million Americans, who witnessed, as they say, up close and personal, 4 years of the Trump administration, and said, you know what? This was really good. Give me 4 more years of this. So we can sit here all night and make fun of Rudy Giuliani farting, and I intend to do that. But on the other side is we have to face the fact that Donald Trump, whatever he is, has taken over the Republican Party. And Donald Trump, whatever he is, has 74 million voters out there. And Donald Trump is going away. Donald Trump is going away at the latest 11/59/59 on January 20th. That is the absolute latest. But Mitch McConnell's not going anywhere. Jim Jordan's not going anywhere. And unless some people unfortunately die, those 73 million people aren't going anywhere.
Right. And Dave, to tail off on that, I want to go back to George, if you don't mind. George, you obviously, being in the military, are super familiar with Michael Flynn. And while it's been the perspective of all of us that they're really not going to be able to pull off a coup, there are elements like Michael Flynn, even in the military. I know you have friends who are probably conservative. I don't know whether they would be going as far as saying, hey, yay, I want a coup. But from your experience in the military, can you give us a ballpark figure of what percentage of the military would be the Michael Flynn wacko? And is that something that we should worry about?
Well, as far as leadership at the high echelons who would actually give orders or commands like that, I think the number is very minuscule. But there is a group of people in the military who remember Timothy McVeigh was in the military.
Right.
You know, there are the military is made up of American citizens, and there's American citizens who have points of view before they join. I've had guys I've worked side by side with for years that the rest of us would say to each other, yo, he's a racist, just when they little comments or their sayings. And then there's a whole bunch of people in the military who when they join the military, they have this mindset about what America is for them. And so a lot of times it takes the courses that I took in the military, it's called social actions. And what they did was they gave us, I don't want to say indoctrination, but they gave us, can't think of the name of the subject, but it was cultural. It talked about, the reason why we talk about the Tuskegee Airmen right now is because in the 80s, the Tuskegee Airmen their legacy was added to the Air Force doctrine. It wasn't nowhere to be found.
Right.
If you pulled the book up that was sanctioned by the actual Air Force, it didn't speak about the Tuskegee Airmen. It was a paragraph. But because the military must be all inclusive. Now, with that being said, the military must be all inclusive. We are going to have some people who have some superiority. I'll say complex. There's not superiority. They have a complex about their superiority, and they try to influence you there. Right now, as we speak right now, there is a deficiency in leadership of African Americans, Latinos, Asians. There's a deficiency of Native Americans in leadership roles. The military says that we must have a representation of the American population. So when I joined the Air Force in 1986, we only made up 12, African Americans only made up 12% of the Air Force. But at that particular time, that was the reflection of the population. So as the population increased to 18%, right now you have about 18% of the Air Force is African American, and so forth and so on. I want to say like 20%. 20% are like, yes. I mean, I personally didn't think there was that many people that believed in it until Donald Trump actually got into office. And all my ex-friends and brothers that I served with were on Facebook, like, just wilding. And I had never had conversation with some. I was stationed with some guys for like 4 or 5 years, and we never talked about slavery. But then, sure enough, they on Facebook, slavery was a choice, and y'all don't like America, you can go back to Africa. Literally, when Kanye came out with that thing, it was like 4 or 5 of, a couple of them was black dudes. I know 2 black dudes was like, the best thing that happened to African Americans is that they became Americans, and we came to America. Like
came.
Right, but don't you think, I think each culture has that, I don't want to call it, or perhaps it is a few individuals who are self-hating or just buy into the other side. I think that happens, but it's got to be such a small percentage, correct? I mean, Trump was only pulling, 6 to 8% of the African American vote?
Yeah, but you got to think about, that's too much.
Right. I agree with you.
Yeah, you're right, George. I was thinking as George, as George was speaking, right? And I think I can't speak for African Americans, for all of them, but a number of the ones George expressed to me, in conversation, the same thing you said, people that they've known basically all their lives, and now they see him in a different light. So what happened? And I think it's simply this. Donald Trump made it permissible to be a bad person, to be a bad American, just to be horrible and horrid and do what you want. And look, we cannot blame him for 250 million Americans dead in the pandemic, but there are certainly a lot of him we could lay right at his doorstep. We can't lay the George Floyd. I mean, we could go through the whole thing, but what he's done, he said, whether by overt speech, overt action, lack of saying anything, or lack of action. And you don't have to go. I mean, you got to, his supporters say, we got to understand. He doesn't say what he means. Well, you just said he said what he means. What are you doing? So you go back. It's very simple. I think you go back to find people on both sides. He wasn't saying that.
Right.
He was saying those white people are better than those black people. And I'm not sure. I think what's really bad about Donald Trump is I'm not sure he believes that. But he believes it's in his best interest
to say something like that. Right. I believe that, Dave.
That's even worse.
Right.
It's one thing if you know, and George, again, I'm speaking entirely out of turn here, but I would assume if I were black, it would be one thing if I knew that this person hated me for skin color, right? Bad, whatever. But I would think it might even be worse if I thought this person didn't, but was going around using it to make himself better, right? And that's what we've got with Donald Trump.
That's the definition of privilege, being able to get away with crap like that. I mean,
absolutely, Ryan.
Yeah, I mean, it's completely ridiculous that he would tout this kind of stuff. I mean, he's emboldened all the people who are racist in America that overtly say, yes, I'm racist and I believe this. Like, those are the people that have been super emboldened, and the people who are next to them are now emboldened to join those kind of people. I mean, he's just completely horrible for our culture and country, and it's like what we're trying to strive for, to be better in our culture every year. He just undoes it. He's absolutely horrible. I saw a really great meme today. George reminded me of it. I actually saved it. I think somebody may have even posted who's watching right now. I don't remember, but it said, studying history will sometimes make you uncomfortable. Studying history will sometimes make you feel deeply upset. Studying history will sometimes make you feel extremely angry. If studying history always makes you feel proud and happy, you probably aren't studying history. I think that is just absolutely true.
Oh my God, that's brilliant. Whoever came up with that.
It's brilliant.
And by the way, if I may add, that if you're making comments in the comment section, we will get to those, but not right now. We want to get through all of the different videos. We only have 2 short ones left, but we will address them. So, all right. Thank you, everybody.
Brian, I'm sorry. Did you say you were going to undress in the next videos? There was something in my mic. I just heard part of that.
Okay, we'll save the comedy for your show.
No, it's not. I'm asking. I'm flying blind here.
Like I said, we'll wait till your show comes out. Okay. All right, we're going to go to our penultimate video, and here we go. All right, this is Katie Porter. She was a Harvard law student taught by Elizabeth Warren, and she is asking Steve Mnuchin a question or two. Let's see how she does and how Mnuchin answers.
Are you in fact a lawyer? I'm reading aloud now from section 4027 of the CARES Act. On or after January 1, 2026, any funds that are remaining shall be transferred to the general fund. In other words, set back to the Treasury. Secretary Mnuchin, is it currently the year 2026? Yes or no?
First, let me comment. I do believe there's an economic emergency. You're putting words in my mouth that are not correct. Second of all, okay, the answer is that 4027.
The time belongs to the gentle lady.
Reclaiming my time, Mr. Mnuchin, would you start by answering my question, and I will ask you others. Is today the year 2026? Yes or no?
Of course it's not 2026. How ridiculous to ask me that question and waste our time.
Well, Secretary Mnuchin, I think it's ridiculous that you're play acting to be a lawyer when you have.
Actually, I have plenty of lawyers at the Department of Treasury who advise me, so I'm more than happy to follow up with Chair Waters and explain all the legal provisions and the ranking member. So, more than happy to make that access.
Secretary Mnuchin, are you in fact a lawyer?
I do not have a legal degree. I have lawyers that report to me.
Thank you. Chair Powell, are you in fact a lawyer?
I am a former lawyer, a recovering lawyer.
You have a legal degree, correct?
Yes, I do.
Okay. So, Secretary Mnuchin, you're trying to tell Chairman Powell to send over any remaining funds right now, and you're claiming, falsely in my opinion, that is what the law says. And you've gotten into a disagreement with someone who's actually a lawyer.
Are you a lawyer?
And you're not listening to Congress, which actually wrote the law about what it says.
Okay, actually, I wrote the law with Congress for what it's worth. And by the way, it's not 450 billion he's returning. I think it's approximately 175 billion.
Reclaiming my time, there was no question there. Secretary Mnuchin, the CARES Act already says in Exhibit 4, in Section 4027, it says that you have to stop making any new investments in Fed lending programs at year end. It doesn't say that the Fed programs must stop making loans or purchases. You are making a decision that does not align with the statute or congressional intent.
The gentlelady's time has expired. The gentleman who is going.
All right, I want this one first.
I would hope that you would. We have to address both of them involved. Okay. After I close off that. Okay.
You know, if I were teaching a course in dissembling or how not to answer a question or how to go around it, that's a good example. Mnuchin was good in that sense. Good at being bad, right? But I also think that perhaps, given the ability of Trump's appointees, that the question of asking whether it was 2026 might be unfair. Because that's a pretty hard question for anybody appointed by Trump to answer. And for some of them, I think it's 1971. They don't know. No, of course. The sad thing is one person was right, and it wasn't Steve Mnuchin, and the other person was wrong.
And she's an attorney, a Harvard grad.
No. Here's the danger of that. All right.
But you saw what he said. He said, "Are you a lawyer?"
Are you done? When you're done, I'll speak.
It has to be said.
Well, go ahead. I'm waiting for you to finish.
Well, basically, I think there was more than him just being wrong. Okay,
it was. Fine, you're missing the point as you usually do.
Okay.
What happens is this. Here's the point, and I'm asking you directly. Did that change anybody's mind in America? That exchange?
No.
Brian, did it change any single person's mind?
That's not what we're looking for, Dave. I think.
Okay, Mr. Mnuchin, dodge the question.
No.
Oh, good. You listened to Steve.
Remember,
and we're able to do it. Go ahead.
This is about perspective, and in this case, you have to. A lot of people say when you have a disagreement with the other side, you have to be polite, this and that. Well, they're always the ones who are playing dirty. Now, she played it clean. Now, again, she did ask a smart question, 2026. But I think it was effective in the sense that it humiliated him. And
really think so?
Absolutely. And then afterwards, he made himself like a fool because he's basically saying, "Oh, you're a woman and you don't even have a degree." When she did.
Brian, stop it. You're missing my point. Did he make himself a fool to himself? And the answer is no. Secondly,
whoa. Did he make a fool to himself? It takes time for that to come about as a truth or an untruth. A day later, he's going to say, "Holy shit, she was a Harvard grad and made me look little." Absolutely, I think it affected him.
Okay, do you also, tonight, after we get done, if you believe that, if you really believe Mnuchin is going to do that, are you going tonight to search for the Yeti, the abominable snowman, or unicorns?
No.
Which one are you
that's
going
bullshit.
to do?
I'm calling bullshit, because
what do you mean?
This is what makes people like Rudy Giuliani sweat his hair dye down because he was nervous. And if you looked at Mnuchin, he was getting nervous and testy.
There's a Brian, there's a difference between nervous and testy. They don't necessarily go together. He was getting testy. What I'm saying is Mnuchin took that to do one thing, and it succeeded. He didn't change one person's opinion of Steve Mnuchin or Donald Trump or the Donald Trump corruption.
Fine, I get that. But I think when you become effective at humiliating the person who is wrong, it starts having an effect. I think it's.
On whom?
What do you think? What do you think Howard Stern did? How did he become popular? He was able to humiliate people, and not in a good way.
He had on his Brian, because people Howard Stern had on his show were human. Do you really think Donald Trump is capable of being humiliated? Answer that question.
Yes.
Yes.
Well, yes.
Yes.
Yes, by losing the election.
Yes. What else?
think he
George,
feels
I know you
ignored.
wanted to say something too.
No, I disagree, Ryan. I'll tell you why after George goes.
Well, the one thing I noticed in this whole, well, I wish when he asked, "Do you have a law degree?" I wish he would have said, "Yes, I do. I'm a Harvard grad." I wish he would have. See, first of all, men like Mnuchin don't respect women right out the gate. They don't respect people who they believe are
True.
beneath them. So remember, I talked about that superiority complex. It's you don't respect people who you think you're better than. So she's just a legal. She's asking me a legal question, and she's questioning me and my lawyer. When I wish she would have said, "Absolutely, I have a law degree." Because when she asked the gentleman next to her, the chairman, he tried to give a little slick answer. Said, "I'm a recovering lawyer." But the question is, do you have a law degree, sir? Yes. So when they threw it back on her, she should have said, "Absolutely, I have a law degree." Then you think he was sweating then, Brian?
Right.
Then you would have seen him sit back and go, "Wait a minute. Y'all didn't tell me that she was intelligent. You didn't tell me that she was."
Well,
in that
he
position."
certainly should have known because she's done this
And so-
before. But he didn't do his homework. But how about this? For example, George, Ryan, Dave, I don't know, have you ever seen these YouTube videos where you have some stud basketball player who dresses up as some old guy, and then he goes out and he plays against these guys who really think they can play, and he humiliates them, and he teaches them a lesson, and that's what has to be done until it hurts too much, because at some point in time it is effective. It takes a lot of it.
When you're done.
No, you're not bullshitting me.
Oh,
no, I know I'm right. Or at least I have a point.
Oh my God! Oh my God! You know you're right.
Okay.
That makes you right.
I know I have a point. Okay.
I'm not
Go
talking
ahead,
about
Dave.
On your head.
You have.
I'm not talking about the point on your head. Here's what I'm talking.
Okay.
Are you a teacher?
Are you a lawyer?
I am not a lawyer.
Okay. You're doing what she did.
I'm asking you a question. You're doing what Mnuchin did.
I am a lawyer. Yes. I mean, I'm a
You're
teacher.
You boneheads, you don't even know what you are.
Okay. Look.
All right.
Okay.
Now, is your job to teach people if you are a teacher?
Am I supposed to keep saying yes? Yes.
No, you're supposed to say what you believe. I don't care what you say.
Absolutely.
Now,
Absolutely.
If you're a teacher, could you conceive? I'm echoing. Could you conceive that despite your best teaching, a student would not learn? Could you conceive of that?
Absolutely. Happens to everybody.
So you're saying humiliation will teach them a lesson. That were your exact words.
Who's them? Who's them?
Will teach. You said people in general.
No. There's a difference between the kid who is a juvenile delinquent and incorrigible when you have to take that kid to the precipice. I've talked to APs who say they will take certain kids to the precipice because they know they're at risk, and they'll get raw with them because it is effective with certain kids. Not all of them. Most of them not.
That's it. Now, I'm going to submit to you, my friend, that Donald Trump is the rawest, worst kid in America right now.
Right.
So my question to you is this. And Ryan, I understand exactly what you said, and you were right in one instance. But if you carry through Brian's idea of humiliation, true humiliation also implies there's some action where you change so you won't be humiliated again. And I think Trump is incapable of changing. I'm not saying what she did is wrong. I think it's great. Okay?
Changing, we don't need to change him. We just need him to react differently. If he knows he's going to get stung like a bully, do you let the bully do what they do? No. You go after the bully.
Now, who's the he? Trump, Mnuchin, or you? Who are you talking? Who's the he?
Well,
they're all the same. Go ahead, Ryan.
Yeah, that's okay. All right. I have a psychology background, so a lot of times when we talk about, emotional words like humiliation, that kind of part of me kicks in a bit. And so I would say, what is one of the first things that a person does possibly often the first thing they do when they're humiliated. What do?
Turn red.
They turn red, and they try to get out of there. They don't want to be there anymore. They hide, flee, whatever they can do to get out of that situation. When it was announced that Trump lost the election the first time, he didn't talk to the media for a week.
Correct.
He didn't tweet for several days. The man hasn't gone an hour without tweeting since he won the election. That's why I believe he was humiliated. Now, I do believe that he's gotten over that part, and he's now trying to figure out how to exploit the loss into making money, whatever his goals are. Screw up America, make money, etc. So I do believe that he was humiliated. Now, is he going to be permanently pummeled and humiliated and is his spirit broken? No, I don't believe that. But no, he was definitely humiliated in my opinion.
Right, but I'm saying that the Democratic Party has to show some seminal fortitude, and they're going to have to bite back, okay? And if there was any problem with Obama, he was too nice to the Republicans. You have to be tough. And this is going to lead into our final discussion, by the way, about Biden. But I think humiliation has its place, Dave. You use it. You use it.
Of course I use it when I think it works.
Why can't she? It's a tool. It's an instrument that the questioner will use if you have an intransigent guest and one who's obnoxious.
Listen, Ryan, what I'm saying is she knew what she wanted to do, and she might wanted to do
and she
exactly
did it
what you said.
well.
Maybe. I'm just saying, and you're always taking it to this. You do things. You take it to what you would do if you were there. I'm saying, forget what she wanted. Forget what Mnuchin wanted. That exchange changed no one's mind, and right now we have to change people's minds.
No, but it will change some behavior, not a mind, a behavior. Help me out, Ryan. Can you help me on that one?
Possibly. There is another point to humiliation that a lot of people don't think about that I think is relevant for what we're saying. Humiliation requires an audience, even if it's just two people. It could be two people or 20 million. It doesn't matter. But it requires an audience who suddenly thinks ill of you in that moment. Whatever it might be. It may not be a permanent negative thought about a person, but, like, oh gosh, I can't believe that just happened. So Trump experiences humiliation in front of the entire country because not only did he let his supporters down, but more people voted against him. So that's a big thing. Now, in the case of the lady who, I don't remember her name, in the case of her, when she was doing her humiliation or attempting to, the problem is Steve Mnuchin is sitting there, and he knows that the people that back Trump and back him don't give a crap about whatever she just said. So he doesn't have to feel humiliated. So I don't necessarily believe that he felt humiliated. I do believe that she was attempting to make him feel humiliated. And I do agree that probably 99% of people who encounter that footage will not change their mind, unfortunately. And the Trump supporter side of things, they're just disregarding facts completely. That's why they're not going to change their mind. So I'm not sure that the humiliation tactic in that instance was useful.
Late breaking news. Gary Peacock has just said something interesting. He said, "You can't speak for the country. A few minds might have been changed."
Well, Gary, I guarantee yours couldn't have been changed. You know why, Gary? I'm not sure you have a mind, good friend of mine.
No, that's ignoring what he's humiliating people. Sorry, Gary. Okay.
What's funny though? I love Gary.
Yes, you do. Listen, we know that.
Here's the thing. Here's the thing. Look, I want to get to Judy Washington's comment because I think it's so.
Yeah, let's go back to that. Let me find that. Sorry, Judy.
Needed to be addressed. I agree. These Republicans need to meet their match. Democrats are too passive. And Brian, you would agree 100%.
100%. That is the ball game right there. It's been my problem with the Democratic Party since '93.
Did you hear what you just said? Your problem. Okay, we're going to come back to that in a moment. Here's the problem. you have, I've said it all along, there are lines you cannot cross yourself. And then there are social lines that should not be crossed. Do you say, and we all say it, fight fire with fire. But what about old Ryan's there with the psychology? I'm going to go with philosophy here a little bit. What about Nietzsche? When you look into the abyss, be careful because the abyss stares back into you. You have to be very careful in this fight. And I've crossed lines that I didn't want to cross, not to become like them. Because if you do, we'll go with what profits a man.
Well, was Katie Porter like them? No, she was a different kind of tough. She was a reasonably tough person, like a Harry Truman. He didn't get obnoxious, but he made his point with some gusto. You got to slap them back. You've got to, Dave.
Why? If what you want to do is win,
Dave.
Dave.
If you're going to get in a fight that you're going to lose, don't you take out a tooth if you can?
Or you don't get into the fight.
Well, first of all, am I fighting
you can't avoid it sometimes.
It's going to be a lot more than a tooth if I'm fighting you. Okay. George looks like George wants something to say. Go ahead, George.
So you got to look at it from the uneducated person. When they're arguing, is the one who yells. The person who yells is yelling because they're trying to prevent you from saying your point. So the best way to get your point across is to allow the braggart to get to exhaust themselves by yelling, screaming, making these crazy points, and then you say the simple thing: "Are you done?"
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And when they say, "Yeah, all right, now what you got to say?" Then you can hit them with the facts. You don't have to.
I'm sorry.
You don't have to go at them at the same volume, but you do have to go at them. You have to.
Here.
What helped the Republican Party right now is they had all these sound bites. If you watch Fox News, you ain't got to hear the story. All you got to hear is the headline. If you watch, I don't know if you guys remember when we were little kids and the news had a breaking story came on. They broke the story for something that really wasn't breaking news. But if you watch ABC or Fox or CNN, you'll constantly hear breaking news, banner comes across the bottom, and it'll tell you something, and you ain't got to read the whole thing for yourself. All I got to do is says Donald Trump, and he got to say he claims. The president says this, and those who believe in what anything he says, who've already drank the Kool-Aid. Remember, we're talking about people who drank gallons of Kool-Aid. So once they see that, they don't want to hear the facts. Every once in a while, somebody on Fox dispute somebody doing the actual interview, and it's the news guys. But after 5:30, it's an echo chamber. The news reporters are gone home. They're at home watching CNN at that point. But after 7 o'clock on Fox, it's an echo chamber.
Yeah, you only got one detail wrong. He only got one detail wrong. It's not they drank gallons of Kool-Aid. It's that they got an IV drip. Okay, that's the only thing you said that was wrong.
And Brian, I am going to pick on you for a moment because I think I think you speak for most all of us when we all want our pound of flesh from this, right? We all want to take out that tooth, but it comes down to how do you win? How do you win? And I'm going to suggest something George said made me think of something too. In my lifetime, the greatest boxer, I believe, it's an opinion, was Muhammad Ali. I think he was the greatest for a lot of reasons. Not just the fact, Ryan's nodding, not the fact he came from your state, although that's important, from Kentucky.
He did.
And as he got a little bit older and he realized he came up, well, he didn't, Angelo Dundee, and it was an old tactic, came up with a thing called rope-a-dope. And basically what he would do, he would lay on those ropes, right? Look at Brian. We don't know what to lay on those ropes and get the livet, and he'd just wait and wait and wait. And and all of a sudden, there's the jab, there's the hook. And I think George also, and I'm not, I would never presume to say I was a great teacher. You'd have to ask all the students I taught, and opinion would be divided, I'm sure. But I do think you raised an important point, whether you're a teacher or whomever. When you're in an argument, the best way to assure the argument escalates, and that's why I was playing with Brian along those lines, is for you to escalate your voice. The best way to de-escalate it is to bring it down. And I think the same thing applies here to a certain extent. And
Dave, can I interrupt for 1 second? I'm sorry.
No.
After you get done the commentary, don't say anything, but I want you to look at the message that I just sent you. This has nothing to do with what we're talking about. Okay,
I
please. Thank you.
I will. So what happens? And I'll make this short, but I think that's why it's okay. I'm trying to. Okay, one of the problems with Donald Trump, Joe Biden will not have. Donald Trump acts alone, right? There's not a person in the United States of America whose opinion he will take if it disagrees with him. Not Ivanka, not Jared, not Rudy Giuliani's, not anybody on the other side. And one of the problems is when you think alone, you don't get any opposition, right? I mean, you're going with what you first think. And how many times for all of us has the first thing we thought not been the best? And somebody's been able to talk us out of doing it, or just like you and I mean, we're playing that argument. We do have a different opinion on it, Brian. But if you were the president you're Biden, that's what you're going to tell your team to do. I might come along and say, no, wait a minute. What are we trying to do here, right? What are we trying to do? Are we trying to take out our pound of flesh, or are we trying to make America better? And they're not necessarily the same thing. They're not, okay? They can be, and you do need some of that to rally the troops. And like Judy points out very aptly, a lot of us Democrats, including myself, I'm not a Democrat, remember, I'm a liberal, which makes me a Democrat 99 billion times over because they're more liberal. Having said that, it's about winning, but it's a little bit more than that. It's not winning at all costs. It's winning and still maintaining your integrity. And the moment you lose that, you then become Donald Trump. And I don't want to see anyone, me, you, anyone, become Donald Trump. And Joe Biden is psychologically, emotionally, intellectually, physically, he's incapable of becoming that. So I just want to say to everyone tonight this. We all think we know what we want to do with Donald Trump. Most of us on this side, it's not nice. But let Joe Biden do what he needs to do first. Because remember this. It's not about Joe. Joe Biden took Donald Trump down. And what I mean by that is everybody on this show knows that I was originally, my choice was Elizabeth Warren. But sitting here tonight, I'm actually glad Elizabeth Warren wasn't the nominee, even though she would have been capable. I don't think she would have taken Donald Trump down. And I think we have to keep that in mind if Joe Biden doesn't do what we want us to, what we, meaning each individual, wants to do. That's all.
All right. Good.
Okay. Again, Judy mentioned that, as a therapist, she teaches her patients to whisper and speak slowly, when in arguments and stuff, and it's very disarming. And I agree with that. Another thing that is kind of interesting to talk about when you're like, I know two things. I'm going to share a metaphor, and then I'm going to share a fact that I know that's very useful for discussing things with Trump supporters or just people in general that you disagree with. I'll start with the metaphor. There's an interesting thing about chess is that a lot of times personality comes out in how you play. And, this isn't something that people would know just watching two people play chess. But when you become a good chess player, you do see that. So one thing that I know is when I'm playing against somebody, it's extremely common when they're losing or, they're feeling internally frustrated, they start slamming the pieces when they move. It's just like they move, they slam a piece, hit their clock. They move, they slam a piece. Well, one of the best ways to deal with those kind of people is you just gently move your piece. That's the equivalent. It's like the equivalent of a whisper. It's so infuriating to these people, and you can beat them every time. And so that's kind of a metaphor for that. I think that it's totally, completely true. Just being more calm with people when they're being irate it's infuriating to them, but also you have the chance to calm them down when you do it. Another thing that is very effective when discussing things with people who disagree with you, and I'm going to say Trump supporters for the sake of the show, is asking questions. You just ask questions, because even if they don't answer it properly in the moment, or they ignore it or dismiss it, they're going to think about it when they're, alone later on, wherever they go. Asking questions. That's all you do. Just ask questions. If they can't answer it. And what they do psychologically is they take, whatever question you do and they don't have an answer for it, they put it on the shelf in their mind. They put it on the shelf. They're like, oh, I don't need to deal with that. And then after they do this 30, 40, 50, 60 times, eventually that shelf breaks. And they'll have some kind of breakthrough on their own time away from you. And then, that's how I like to approach people who have different opinions than me. And I'll say it's effective most of the time. Not always.
Brian, I think what you said should be kept and sent to everyone. But I do have one comment I want to make. I've said before, please don't use the word chess, but I understand you had to. Okay, for Brian here, puts a T on it, but that's okay. But the other thing I wish you hadn't done tonight is say, I'm going to use a metaphor. That brings up something really bad for Brian. When he was in 4th grade, that's a true story, the teacher asked in class, what is a metaphor? He said, oh, I can answer this. And she said, Brian, what is a metaphor? She said, it's a place for cows to graze. And so just please don't use the word metaphor anymore. Thank you.
Is Brian going to
transition? Best part of the show, ladies and gentlemen. You can stare at me. Soon I'll be doing a hoochie coochie dance.
I had some things to deal with there, but I'm okay. Listen, let's move on.
Russian women of the night.
Can someone call up a Russian hooker for him, please? I think he's frustrated. Okay.
I think Donald Trump knows someone, but he doesn't.
Yeah, I think he does too. But they're a lot smarter than he is, I would assume. So let's go on to the last video that we have. And this was, I found very interesting.
This is Michigan.
We believe that facts matter. So to that end, we want to share with you this fact check from our Verify team out of DC, WUSA, our affiliate. Verify is our parent company's fact-checking initiative. Take a look.
President Trump posted a 46-minute presentation to social media Wednesday. So let's talk specifics.
This is Michigan. At 6:31 in the morning, a vote dump of 149,772 votes came in unexpectedly.
False. We investigated this claim 27 days ago. The charts seemed to show a spike, but it was actually due to a typo. Instead of 15,000, someone put in 150,000. The error was only online, not in an official vote count, and quickly fixed. The official numbers were never wrong.
In one Michigan county, as an example, that used Dominion systems, they found that nearly 6,000 votes had been wrongly switched from Trump to Biden.
False. Fact-checked 20 days ago. A county clerk in Michigan forgot to update a voting machine, which caused the online preliminary report to be off. But they caught the issue because the county had a paper count of the votes, which showed the difference. The votes had never been switched, and the issue only affected the preliminary count online. But that wasn't the only claim the president made about Dominion.
Who owns it, which we don't know? Where are the votes counted, which we think are counted in foreign countries, not in the United States?
We do actually know who runs Dominion. Their CEO is John Poulos. He testified before Congress about voting security in January of this year.
My name is John Poulos, and I am the Chief Executive Officer of Dominion Voting Systems.
Government documents from the Election Assistance Commission do show that Dominion is an American company headquartered in Denver, Colorado. As for the claim that votes were counted outside the United States, there's literally no evidence to back that up. We broke this claim down 13 days ago with the Cybersecurity and Infrastructure Security Agency, or CISA, and verifiedvoting.org, showing that almost all U.S. states have a paper trail, and those votes are counted in the counties that they're cast in. Keep in mind, while there are still ongoing lawsuits in some states, so far none of them have turned up issues that would change.
Okay, I'm going to come back to our normal screen for a second, folks, because I think you get the idea of what we're talking about here. And I've seen on Hal Sparks' show the videotape of one of the voting machine stations with the tabulation stations in, I guess it was in Wayne County. And it was obvious what Fox News and OAN was trying to do. They were showing video clips of people running around after counting was told to be stopped. But there was nobody counting. They were tabulating. And then they were taking some of these suitcases out because they were supposed to. And they were picking and choosing what time they were videotaping that clip. So there were gaps, like the Nixon tapes, and the casual viewer, and I assume the Republican viewer, would look at it and say, look at that. They're pulling a suitcase out. Or look at this. It's after 10 o'clock. Voting stopped. But you've got people there messing around with papers. So again, the casual viewer sees it as something wrong. And maybe even the OAN reporter reports it as though something's wrong. But it does a tremendous disservice. And this is why you see people like Michael Flynn. And you wonder how he became a general, if he was gullible enough to accept that and not wait to see if there's some type of clarification. But no, they're ready to have a civil war. And this is, I think, is going to lead us into our final segment here. Is this why we are in the state that we are? Because of propaganda.
Yes. Yep. There you are. Look, we saw tonight, and thank you for showing those
clips. We can't hear George. I think George was just talking, and I couldn't hear him.
Oh,
sorry, George.
Go ahead, George.
Go ahead,
if you were
Dave.
up.
I'll jump in.
Okay. No, I was just going to say we saw two really interesting approaches to putting down or trying to show that Steve Mnuchin, who is pretty high up, right, in terms of this. We saw that exchange, and George, you were spot on the idea that he disrespected her, not because she was a Democrat. He just disrespected her because she was a woman. You're absolutely right. It's foreign to him that any woman could be smart enough. Now, I would suggest, I don't want to give my wife away, but I would suggest that Steve come live with her for 2 days and try that shit and see what happens. And it ain't gonna fly here in the Price household. I learned that 47 years ago. The second thing, though, is in that second one. Okay, I want everybody to answer, and we don't know. We don't know. I'd like to reserve the plat to go last. That Donald Trump. I think I can't remember the number. But in that 43-minute, it was more than 60 some lies he gave. That's pretty impressive in a 43-minute thing. Why do you think he did that? And my question is, I'm not trying to guide in a direction. Does he really believe it? Does he not know it? Is he using it directly? Does he not care? Does he not understand the dangers that exist by doing what he's doing? Somebody pick that up and go round robin. I'll go last.
Okay, George, do you want to?
Yeah, well, what I was going to say is that when we look at people like Michael Flynn, it's not that he believes what they're saying. He's a part of the whole infrastructure. There's a collective of people in America who want to. They're going to profit from our separation. Mm-hmm. They're going to profit by us being separated. The minute the poor, we say this all the time, the minute the poor people become a political group, the Democrats and Republicans will cease to exist. But right now, these organizations being run by elite people, I predict this, and y'all can take this down, write it. In 3 years, there's going to be a splintering of the Republican Party, as well as the Democratic Party might have some problems. But the Tea Party, think about when President Obama became president, the Tea Party came to fruition. When Donald Trump became president, the Tea Party, they don't even exist anymore. They've turned into this alt-right. There's always been a fringe of Republicans or Americans. I don't want to say Republicans. There's always been a fringe of Americans who, I don't want to say, they don't believe their conspiracy theory. They believe every negative thing that someone says. I say this again. I've learned this a long time ago. Timothy McVeigh served in the military. While I was in the military, I know some really patriotic airmen. But when you sit down over a steak and a beer, and they'll say some things that you have to like, yo, did he just say what I think he said about those people? They're not going to talk to you about yourself. They're not going to sit across from me and say, well, black people shouldn't be doing this. They're going to talk about the Hispanics. They're going to talk about the gays. They're going to talk about the Jewish people. They're going to find somebody that you might relate to. And the problem that we're having right now, Brian, is there's people who are saying, well, he wasn't talking about me. He was talking about them. And as long as he's not talking about me, it's okay. So when the president stands up there for 45 minutes and he literally went through every conspiracy theory that has already been debunked by his staff, but he reiterated it because I think he's going to try to start not either his own party or his own entertainment conglomerate, something he has in plan that he just can't take defeat. He can't be defeated. He has to be cheated. And I've heard somebody say this before. He can't be defeated. He had to be cheated. So if he's cheated, there's a group of people who's going to have sympathy for him. Now, if he was defeated, remember he said, I don't like losers. I don't like John McCain because he was captured. All my heroes never were captured. Those people who think like him are going to follow him. And I don't think 74 million people are going to follow him. Republicans, I think maybe 40 or 30 million might follow him. Because a bunch of the people I know who voted for Donald Trump, they voted for him because he was a Republican. They didn't vote for him because they believe everything he says. But there's about a third of that group that believes everything he's saying because they're already in that QAnon group. They're already in that Proud Boy group. They're already in that alt-right group. So he's going to pull all of them together. And that's the only fear I have, is he pulled them people together and they become their own political or outright thoughts. And Flynn wasn't always like that. At least I don't think he was.
Ryan, did you want to add anything?
Yeah, Ryan, let me direct the question again to Ryan too. George answered. So just again, use your psychology background, which is very solid. You can never explain motive. I mean, you really don't know. But what was Donald Trump doing in that 40+ minute, to the best of your guesstimation?
Sure. The first thing I see is just he's distracting the public from whatever the hell else he's doing. I mean, who goes on TV and lies and just lies and lies and has little graphs pointed up? I mean, it's crazy. Like, I don't think that he's trying to do anything other than be a distraction for whatever else is happening. He's doing all these midnight bill passings and all this stuff. He's switching people out at different places. I think he's just trying to distract and try to milk as much as he can from his supporters in terms of trying to, get donations and whatever. I mean, I think it's all financial for him at this point. I think he's going to use everything he can, and I think he's just trying to distract people. I think that's it. I don't know why else you would go on TV and lie repeatedly, easily provable lies. He's riling up his base, making money, and distracting people from other stuff that he's doing. That's what I think he's doing.
Brian, what's your call?
Well, in general, my beef has been not so much Trump. It's obviously the entire party, but more than that, it's people like Rupert Murdoch, who I think in the beginning just see this as a money-making adventure, but it's the Frankenstein experiment gone wrong. And you wonder, really, who is what is the fundamental prime mover to this horrible thing that has occurred in the last, I would say, the last 20 years. You know, we go back to 2000, and I would say the real danger has been the right-wing media, because at least with CNN and MSNBC, it's still based on facts. Yes, they have a perspective that seems to support the left, but with Fox, it's just, as Hannity said, we don't vet anything on this show, and most of them are not college trained. Not that that necessarily has to be, but I see it as a manipulative big brother business affecting the rest of society. Because, as you know, and I've said this before, you know, high school students read 1984 and Brave New World, and they keep thinking of Big Brother, and they kept their eyes on Big Brother being the government. And to this day, a lot of these people on the right buy into that. You know, George Orwell. But the real problem hasn't been Big Brother. It's been Big Brother business, because it's companies like Google, it's Fox, it's OAN, it's Newsmax. They're a real danger. And I don't know how you get out of this, because it's given somebody like Trump power. I mean, he didn't have the money that, say, Bill Gates had, or some of the other billionaires. Probably wasn't a billionaire, but what he did have was a Goebbels-like propaganda machine. And that's what frightens me, because I felt this back in 93 with Newt Gingrich. I felt it back then. And everybody used to say, Brian, what the hell's wrong with you? Even my father, who was a liberal, used to say, you got to understand, you know, both sides have liars and blah, 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 blah. And I would constantly argue with him. I said, look at what they are doing. And then you saw what happened to President Obama. They just stonewalled him. So it isn't Trump. It's this media. And now Trump is playing with it. In fact, if you think about it, everything Hannity does is basically a back and forth between him and Trump. And then you get 74 million people who believe that crap. And we're in trouble. So I see it more as a media problem.
Okay. This is no trick question. I'm going to ask you, I have a finger up, correct? Everyone see the finger? Brian,
Yes.
How many fingers do I have up, Brian, to you?
No, I'm not going to include the thumb. So, 1.
What if I had done this? I didn't. I did this. Okay,
Okay.
Brian, so I did this. 1. Ryan, not a trick question.
I'd see one finger held up.
And George.
One finger.
Okay. And I had one finger up. Now let's assume for a moment that I'm replaced with Donald Trump, right? And 3 of his supporters. Brian's gone, Ryan's gone, George is gone. And Donald Trump goes this, and he says, I have 2 fingers up. You were talking, that's pure Orwellian. And that's where we are. And it's not just Trump, you're right, but it's somebody who speaks to the people like Trump, and Trump speaks to the people that are willing to be spoken to by him. And that's the problem. And Donald Trump is not going to be president again at the latest 11:59 on January 20th. He's angling, I think. Part of the con is money, but he wants to continue it. And if you really want to know what I think, tune into the next From Dave's Desk. But in the long run, we all have to ask ourselves, how do we undivide? Can we undivide? Should we undivide? Does this division bring America down? Is it going to be, do we need to change some of the Constitution? And all this, but for everybody, you have to be patient, because when Joe Biden comes in,
hopefully,
understand he's coming in, Brian. He's coming. There's no hope.
Like I said, I tend to agree with you, but
I'll let
again,
you have your
think of
option.
the power of the media. I don't care about what you say about the courts, the 1 in 40 cases that Trump won, whatever. This man will go to any length.
I understand that, but sometimes it gets lost in this shuffle. Because, Brian, you were right on the money. The smoke and mirrors, and he throws everything up, and just distraction and chaos is his game, because he emerges right from that.
He loves chaos.
But yesterday, California certified its vote. And that was the number that pushed Joe Biden over the top. So Donald Trump maybe always had it within him to overturn a state, maybe even 2. Hasn't worked out well for him. But man, there's too many states now. But that's not the worry. The worry is, like I said, and we can even look a little bit past, although Rachel really gave us a lot to think about last night. Look a little bit past that. But the real worry is January 21st in 2 sessions. What kind of America will be left for Joe Biden to take over?
It's already here. Look what Keith just said here. Now, Keith is an Australian. He said, from an Australian point of view, the USA has always been divided. That's true, Keith. But it was, and this is not to blame the Aussies, okay? But Rupert Murdoch, if anybody changed America, it was Rupert Murdoch. And he was able to conjure up this network that could manipulate this divide and make it like this instead of like this.
Brian, I'm going to come at you from a little different angle. We said, and I think we all agreed, that Donald Trump merely reached a point and spoke for a point that the people were already at. I think that's kind of true. What if?
Can we just go back on that for a second? Because I want to be careful how you put that.
Go ahead.
Yes, there's always been a divide. And I would suggest that there's always been a divide, but there was always a certain amount of congeniality between the two. But I think what's happened is people like Hannity and O'Reilly and Laura Ingraham, whomever that we see on these Fox programs, they have incited the worst in people, the subconscious of these people, so that they can outwardly express their racism and bigotry, and more than that, their outright stupidity. And this is what makes it more dangerous. Murdoch he knew what and perhaps he didn't even know. He's like Putin. He started it, but look what I've got now.
Look, but what about this, Brian, or anyone else out there? What about if television has become the reality?
Reality is what people perceive it to be.
74 million people perceive Donald Trump returning as president as a good reality, and as a reality.
Yes.
And 80 plus million see the other side.
Yes.
My point is, television, yes, you're right. But I'm not so sure that the argument that Donald Trump enabled, if you will, or gave the okay, I think Rupert Murdoch is horrible and hideous, and a capitalist who has no conscience. But having said that, I don't know if he just kind of, the people were already looking for something and they find it on TV. Look,
I've got to obviously do this. Hold on. And this is not planned here. Okay. Look at this. Okay. Let me go to the screen here. Let's go to Fox right now. Now, I haven't even looked at this. Okay? The way you'd see this, okay, you wouldn't know that Biden has won. So, for example, look, he's talking about him going to Georgia for the state runoffs. Trump files lawsuit in Georgia challenging election. There's nothing here that would make the Republican voter think that Trump has lost. President of Soros Open Society Foundation. They're going after Soros like Putin does. Okay? Soros has always been the focus of Putin. Yes. You can't convince me, Dave, that Fox hasn't changed our society. It's not just Trump. I mean, yes, Keith's right. He saw the divide. But
well, that's what I'm saying. I mean, the divide was there, right? But Walter Cronkite didn't play the divide.
Right. He played it straight.
The divide was there, but Barack Obama, George Bush's father, Bill Clinton, go all the way back. They didn't. Now suddenly we have a media that does play the divide, right? They picked a side, and then you only watch Fox. That's the end of that. And Trump certainly played the divide. So my point is, where does that leave us? I don't know. I mean, we're going to continue the battle, and we're going to still do all this, but I don't know. I mean, I'm kind of at a loss to say if it was just one. If we got rid of Trump in America, would be better. If we got rid,
we can't hear you.
I'm sorry.
I had trouble hearing. You
can't hear me,
George, earlier. I can hear you now. Yeah.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Yeah, that's okay.
Things are going off. Okay. Thanks, Ruth. Look, if the cancer is, or the power is the media, the Democratic Party can't just simply try to convince Republican voters to jump to their side. Now, the real route is to somehow take over Fox. They've got to do something, make an offer, get somebody who's really wealthy and say, Rupert, I'll give you $2 for every dollar you want. And then you keep buying them out if you have to, like Google did to YouTube. Because unless you can stop this train, this media train, you're not going to stop it. And that's my perspective.
You're absolutely right. But the problem is there's always somebody waiting. Buy out Fox, and Sinclair comes to the rise.
Okay.
Buy out Sinclair.
I got it.
OAN comes to the rise. Buy out OAN, Newsmax comes to the rise. Buy out all of them, and Trump starts his own. I mean, where does that end? I don't know.
I don't know. Well, let me hear from you, George and Ryan, because Dave and I are going to go back and forth forever on this, even though we were kind of agreeing.
I don't think somebody buying Fox is going to change it. The problem with Fox is, and like you said, it's not just Fox. It's News One. There's all these other different. Right now in America, you can start your own. We can start our own news broadcasting company by getting a podcast and expounding on anything we want to believe in. What's hurting our country right now, Fox just lets it go. Like they've decided, if you look at Fox one night, start off in the morning, don't look at Fox and Friends, I'm sorry. Start off watching the news. Fox, it says Fox News, but it's not Fox News. Rupert Murdoch is entertainment conglomerate. He's selling entertainment. It's like the people who will watch wrestling or Jerry Springer, they come for the fight. They come for the confrontation. They didn't want peaceful banter. They want to see blood. They want to see when Donald Trump first started doing those rally tours, remember, they wanted chance. They wanted people to get in for it. And Fox kept showing all those type of things that made Donald Trump Donald Trump. He bought into it. He wasn't that. He's not a tough guy. He's an actor.
Right.
He's not a tough. So they gave him a role to play, and he's playing the role to the max. So now all the people that was around him was trying to keep him in a little, tapping him with a stick to keep him going in the direction they want to go. He removed him. Even he removed Steve Bannon. Steve Bannon says he's off the chain because now you got this lunatic who believes that his hype. He's believing what Fox says about him. But if Fox News reporters, as they one by one talk bad about, I don't say talk bad about him, but they question him. I keep saying this all the time. There's two different parts of Fox News. There's Fox News in the daytime up to 4 o'clock.
Right.
And then it changes into entertainment. It changes into a propaganda. It changes it. Matter of fact, every one of the people they have on there speaking is selling something. They're selling something. They always selling something. Mm-hmm. They're trying to make money off the demise of the country. We just have to be, and unfortunately, it could happen to the Democrats. If you watch CNN all day and you believe everything CNN say, you might get caught up in it. Somehow, some way, intelligent people, and having a college education doesn't make you an intelligent person. Having an intelligent person must be able to cipher out what is negative, what is positive, what is right, what is wrong, what is illegal, and what is far-fetched. And there's too many. I mean, dude, you can't stand in front of American people and say, I love uneducated people. And they applaud.
Right. They're applauding their own ignorance.
And those are the same people that vote against they're the ones who keep voting against their own plight. They're the ones that keep putting themselves in the same situation. Here it is, you're in Appalachia, America, rural America, you in Ohio, you in all these places, you're a coal miner, and you're going against healthcare. How can you be a coal miner and say, I don't want healthcare? I'm coughing out my lungs, but I don't want healthcare.
Right.
Hey, I know how they do it in Kentucky.
That's right, because that's a cold state.
I know how they do it. Here's how they do it. They say, I hate Obamacare. I don't want Obamacare, but give me some Affordable Care Act. That's how they do it in Kentucky.
Absolutely right.
That's exactly right. Right.
And Brian, that gets back to something you were saying. We no longer have the ability, if we ever had it, as a nation collectively, to distinguish between fact and opinion. We no longer have the ability to distinguish between propaganda and truth. And propaganda is really just a nice way of saying lies. And we no longer have a thing, whatever that entity is. It's not the courts.
Well,
it's certainly not the church.
makes a good point. He makes a good point. He says Fox News applied a few years ago to operate in Canada, but they didn't give them the license, okay, because they said this isn't news. So I applaud the Canadian government.
Vegematic, look, I'm just going to say this flat out. If tomorrow you would like to have Dave Price in your country, if you could make it 15 degrees warmer, I will cross the COVID border and get
global warming will take care of that quickly.
Since I've visited Toronto for the first time in my adult life, which I've been as a kid, I'm trying to think. Michael, I'm trying to think how old my son was. 1978, maybe 79. I've been convinced that Canada's better than America. And I have no problem saying that. I mean, how can you not say that? George, like you were saying, how can a coal miner not be? Well, you say something like that and you're being anti-American. No, I'm not being anti-American, nor am I being pro-Canadian. I'm just saying comparing two countries. Keith and our friends from Australia, I now have a real vested interest in following Australia. I'm not saying Australia doesn't have its problems, but my son and daughter-in-law and 2 grandchildren are going for year 2. Michael just signed an agreement to extend there for year 2. I'm so grateful, so I do follow Australia. Australia is a better country today than America. I can't swear to it. but I keep saying this. I talked to 6 of my former students in 6 different countries who have become citizens of those countries. Every one of them said they will not return to America as it is today. And every one of them spent at least 20 plus years living here. So they do have a benefit.
Dave, I just wanted to mention
yes.
real quick, George just texted me that he's going to have to leave us. So George, I want to tell you from the bottom of my heart and our hearts, thank you again. You are always welcome as a lead guest, always a part of Divided We Stand. So we appreciate it greatly.
Appreciate it.
George, the only thing you could do better tonight than the performance you had is if you're leaving now to join an undercover mission with your military.
Here we go.
To take out one of the most dangerous men in America. We've seen him tonight. We've seen him in action, and that would be Brian Weinstein. So if you're doing that, go with God.
Actually, my son is on a spoken word poetry thing right now, and I'm trying to listen every time he.
That's Lanita. I hear.
Get out.
Because he's performing, and I'm looking and I'm trying to do 2 things at once, but if I don't get a chance,
family first, George. Family first, always.
So,
thanks
and
again,
I just
George.
want to let you guys know, man, that I'm a quiet rebel. I want to just read one thing too before I leave. And I was telling you guys a couple of weeks ago when I first joined you, when I was telling you how we had to treat the Republicans after they lost. And one of the things that I do, if you ever follow me on Facebook, I do put some things up, and I always throw questions up there, and I want them to. And Dave, you mentioned, I believe you said it. They keep putting questions, or maybe you Ryan. They keep putting questions. They keep putting questions on the shelf. So I kept just asking questions. Why is it? How come? Why do you do this? What if he said this? What if I did this? And I asked that of my friends. It was crazy. What if I did what Trump was doing? How would you feel, me? So I'm gonna read this to you real quick. And this is the guy I was stationed with like 20 years ago in the military. He says, this is 8 o'clock in the morning. Hey, George, I want to get something off my chest. This summer, with all the crap that was going on, I'm sure I said or wrote something that surely pissed you off. And I look back over some of our posts and I can understand that. I allowed the craziness to have me speak with my brain and not my heart. I'm sure I upset or disappointed you, something I would never want to do. And with that being said, that I would just like to say, I'm sorry, brother. Now, this dude was really, really crazy during the summer with this Trump stuff. And I just kept treating him with kindness like we talk about all the time. And today he's realizing I was right. I was right. So that gives me some hope that people like my buddy who I served with in the military, who I didn't cut him off. I kept telling him, hey, bro, I'm about to cut. I kept saying, bye, bro, I'm about to cut you off. And we just have to be patient and hope that the good angels that surround us, surround this country for the 240 plus years we've been doing this, that we continue to prevail as a country. Despite of our differences, those are the things that make us stronger. So if we continue to enlighten people on just expressing themselves to the best of their abilities, hopefully this country would just bind together and get us over the hump. And my biggest fear is that we fall prey to that side of the rhetoric. As long as we stick to our values and we have good trouble, then our country is going to be better. I hate to say that, and then I have to leave, but I apologize. I wish I could stay longer, but they jamming over here with these poetry things.
Go. You want to hear your voice?
Don't worry. We appreciate it, George.
All right, God bless.
Tell Anita I said hello, okay?
She can hear you.
All right, great. Thank you. All right, let me see what we've got here. Ryan, let me assign you to 3 here.
Sure.
And now we got 3s. Let me give you a background.
And my hard stop is at 11, if we go that.
Gotcha. I don't know. Well, maybe we'll probably right around then, if not before. All right, let me clean up the background for it, and you're good to go. So now we have 3s and 2s and 1s. All right. Okay, so we did get through all the videos, and I started showing some of the commentary, and we had a lot of compliments to George. So kudos to him. Thanks, George. George, you add a lot to this show. Veg, so true, George, and bravo. So yes, but we did have a lot of other comments that were coming through. So yeah, there's
Brian will comment on those that need commenting.
Okay, let's just see. A lot of people just saying hi in the beginning, but that's
well, that's good. Hi back.
Okay, the first comment was, it looks like it's me, but it's not. My wife used her laptop and somehow it connected into an old YouTube account. So she was talking about Melissa.
That first video.
Carone, right? She's the classic personality who knows how to upset, cause chaos, and bully. I deal with customers like her and hang up all the time because it's a form of abuse. She's abusive. Yeah.
Now, Ronnie, there's no reason to comment on that because you're 100%
right. And she said that
yeah,
perfect for the Trump world. Okay.
Absolutely no comment there. You're absolutely right.
Then we had some more. Again, we kept moving through the topics. I probably should have warned everybody to hold off until later. But, when we have a screen with 4 faces, it's tough to just throw text over it. But in any case, Judy, who's very, very active on our chat today, said, I agree. Poor education produce Trump supporters. I would agree with that. Anybody? It's just
the problem becomes, though, with that, and Judy's absolutely right. They almost relish that, and in the sense that, I mean, I try not to dismiss anyone with poor education because they may have far more common sense than I do with my, degree from Villanova University. But a lot of what I find on their side, and there is an us versus them, they think that automatically because you have a degree, there's something wrong with you. Simply because you're part of that intellectual elite, East Coast, whatever. So, yeah, I mean, I don't know. American education, wow. There's something we could talk about for about 782 years.
Yep.
Yeah, I think, for those that don't know, I have student loan debt. Oh, that's not me.
Let's assign you there.
That's a nice silhouette of a lady there. That's number 2. I think you said.
But Brian, I don't want to scare you, but that's how Brian Brian, before you start, I don't want to scare you, but that's how Brian sees you late at night. Okay.
Now, what happens if I can just say what's happening now?
Let Ryan talk.
I'm just saying. Look, we have assigned cameras, but once somebody leaves, it jumps.
Yeah,
okay.
Tougher.
Okay.
No, that's okay. But anyway, I was saying, I have student loan debt, and it's horrible, and I hate it. But one thing that I've noticed when I discuss student loan debt with usually right-wingers, what I get, it's so interesting to me because they're trying to make me angry, they're trying to upset me, oh, you're lazy, all this stuff. They say all this stuff. I don't care. They can say what they want. But what's really interesting about it is it's almost like they're interested in the burn. They want to, yell at me and they want to get me angry, and it's kind of like there's a jealousy there maybe or an anger that I'm educated and they aren't or something. They don't care as much about the government forgiving the debt as they care about, I made fun of a guy who has student loan debt. It's very strange to me, and it's I have never in my life felt that anyone who wants to become a plumber or go into the military is a horrible, horrible thing. I've never held that view, but I'm treated like I hold that view because I went to college. I must hate those other things. And it's a very strange narrative that I always encounter, and it's almost like I want to talk about this issue, but they just want to make fun of me and move on. And it's very strange. I don't understand why that's appealing, but I get that's my experience with it. So, I definitely think education in this country is a problem for many reasons, and it needs to be improved.
There's always been, if you study history, American history in particular, there's always been kind of this populist view that the educated are out of touch Yeah, and there may be a certain truth to that. When you needed to be able to kill bear, I don't know if a philosophy degree helps you kill bear back in colonial times. I'm not real sure. Probably doesn't. But we've moved beyond that. And see, well, I'm going to say what they don't know. What happens now? And I agree. I mean, I know plumbers. I know if you're happy, be what you are, as long as you're not harming others. There's no better job, right? But we rate that. And one of the things that's interesting, and I'm going to take Obama at his word. I disagreed with Obama. He kind of came, and maybe that wasn't his intent. It probably wasn't. What he wanted to say is everybody should have the opportunity to get a college education who wants it. And I believe that to be true. But there came this thing like you really need one. And I would submit to you when I get up to my comments here, I'm going to suggest tonight there are, what do I say, at least 240 pretty educated people who I'm going to say bad things about tonight. And education doesn't make you a better person. For me, I will say exactly. I worked in a factory. I despised it. It was hard work. I didn't want to do it. I wasn't equipped to do it. I went and got a college degree just because it was what I did. And honestly, it's allowed me not to do anything I consider work. And I'm going on age 68. Now, other people might consider it work. So I think the college degree worked for me. It didn't. My father, different time. His joke was, and it wasn't really a joke, he spent 3 of his best years in 8th grade and then went off and lived his life. That's the way it once was. And he was very successful. I don't know if you can do that today, especially Brian, bringing it back to your idea of television and the power of television. How many shows do you see about the wealthy? A lot, right? How many do you see about the poor? Not as many. And you aspire. You aspire to what you see. So I do think, Ryan, what you said is true. I think I always hesitate to say that, but I also see it, a jealousy. But what's profound to me is it's not, it's not a necessary jealousy. They may be better, far better off. They don't know what, I know that before I was married, I would see people without college education, and their date looked far hotter than mine that night, right? I mean, if that's what you're looking for. My education didn't get me the hot girl, whatever. So it all depends. Go ahead, Brian, any more comments?
Well, I just wanted to add one more thing, and that has to do with, again, the idea about we have the uneducated kind of ruling us right now in a certain way. If that is the media, if that is Trump, if that is the Republican Party and its supporters, this is where my experience with the Soviet Union kind of comes in, because that was the one complaint, well, many complaints I should say, but the biggest complaint against the Communist Party from the people below was that the ignorant people were in power and the intelligentsia was usually in the gulag. And that's the crime of what happened there, is that you lost generations because you had the strong men in power, and then the intelligent were seen as troublemakers, and so much so that they'd send them to work camps. These are intelligent academic people.
Isn't that every dystopian novel ever written?
Right, and this is why, again, this
I agree.
This
Brian.
ties into our country, because I mean, look, you said yourself, Dave, the 20th, and I think, Ryan, you agree, the 20th, pretty much a lock. Biden will become president, but after that, we don't know. I just don't know anything anymore. The more that I learn, the less that I know, and I do think that experience that I had with the Soviet Union does kind of affect my thinking. And every day, I'll tell myself, okay, well, Dave has got to be right. Like on the 20th, Biden will be president. We've got states certifying California. And then 10 minutes later, I'll see some news and I'll think, oh, for God's sakes, it's undoing everything that he said here. And it wears on you. And I see it on Divided We Stand. And I see how people just like me. And
you know who benefits from that, Brian?
Well,
Donald
it's not
Trump.
me. Right.
He's got
right.
the chaos. He's, eventually, and I've read that about him, that it's his version of rope-a-dope. I mentioned that earlier. He just wears on you in these legal proceedings he used to be in until you just say, oh, hell, it ain't worth it, and go away.
Right.
But 80 million of us Americans ain't going to say, oh, hell, it ain't worth it, and you take that job. That's where it's different. He was never able to distinguish between the difference between running Trump Industries and running the White House. He never caught that. And
Sorry,
this is
Ryan.
when he got caught up.
That's okay.
That's back to that's back to Brian's dream, Ryan.
I'm trying
My
to get you there,
ideal self.
Ryan. There you go. Ryan, did you want to make any more comments about that?
Well, I saw some comments that people made. I wasn't sure if it's okay to bring those up.
Sure,
absolutely.
absolutely.
Okay, so yeah, Keith Boyd made
Get him back
several
in,
comments.
Brian.
Yeah, he said, what about regional influence and tribalism driving community momentum? You know, I'm one of the most anti-tribalist people you all probably know. I'm so anti-tribalist that I don't like sports at all. And that's one of the major reasons. I know when I say this, it's unpopular, and that's okay. But yeah, I think that sports drives tribalism in our country. And the only reason I bring that up in this context is because this country is so tribal right now. I think that it's red team versus blue team. That's
Right.
what it is. And when I see sports, my experience with sports growing up, I remember in my household, we were my dad was never a big football fan of a specific team, but we were not Vikings fans. I'll tell you that, okay? Because those people are idiots. Now I remember asking, why are Vikings fans idiots? Well, I never got a good answer. And that was my introduction to tribalism in sports.
Right.
But
absolutely
in the country today, it kind of feels like that. It's like if you're not a Trump supporter, they hate you, and vice versa. And
yeah, you're absolutely right.
Brian asked the question earlier. Do we need to try to reunite with that group, or do we need to stay separate? What do we need to do? And I definitely feel that is probably important to unite with as many of them as we can. I don't think that it's okay to oppress, I don't think it's okay for people to, support oppression and keep voting for people that are going to oppress them and others and all this stuff. I think that's not good. But there's got to be a large percentage of Republicans that are not crazy people that we can't get along with. I know a couple of them. I know three, like I said, I know three Republicans. One of them's a 1%er. Yes, he voted for Trump, but he said he doesn't care if he's elected or not. The second one that I know voted for Trump and is a complete zealot for Trump. I just checked his wall earlier. He is still a zealot for Trump. Thinks everybody's lying and cheating about the election. And the third one that I know, all three of these guys know each other too. But the third one that I know did not vote for Trump, but he did not vote for Biden. It's those people that I think we can connect to. I think there's got to be some hope. I think there's a large majority of that 70.
I think it's too late. Honestly, guys, again, I go back to the media. I think that it's like, how you say, well, unless you catch a kid when they're 5 or 6 in their formative years in terms of education, by the time they get to the high school, they're done. And I think this almost has to apply to the United States. I think you get a whole generation that you say, you know what? Wait till they walk off the face of the earth, because they're not changing. Unless you've got the guns to say you're going to do this, they're not. If anything, they're going to do it to you.
Well, here's the thing. I never bring facts. I bring facts. I never bring numbers. Numbers scare me because they're real. I can't bullshit numbers, right? But before we came on, I read an interesting article. I think I copied these numbers right. The Washington Post spent some time polling, and of course that's a dirty word now, asking a couple simple questions to the 249 Republicans that's in the House and the Senate in government in Washington. So they're the 200. You could make an argument if you believe, and this is debatable, if federal government is a step up from state government, these are the 249 most powerful people in America who aren't the president, the vice president, and any Republicans on the Supreme Court. 27 Republicans agreed that Joe Biden won the won the presidency,
and he's after them.
Two, and I want to come back to them in a moment. 2 Republicans say Trump won, and 220. Well, Ryan, you're better with figures than I am, so you might want to check me on this. I came up with roughly about 88, 89%. Say, I'm not sure. Okay. Now, that kind of gets to what Ryan was intimating maybe a little bit before. So why are they doing this? All right, there are 27 people. If I were to try to get them on our team, there's 27 people that seem to be at least somewhat reasonable, right? They're the ones you go after.
About 12%, right? What's the total number?
What?
What's the
I
total
think it was 249 and 220. Yeah. So, and then you've got this 220. So what the hell are they doing? Well, I'm going to submit that I don't know that they're Trump supporters personally, but they're got that finger in the wind and seeing how it plays out, right? Because they got to worry about their constituency at home. And I loved, not because I agree with it, Ryan, but what you said about politics and sports. And they actually do share this similarity. Politics is more about winning than sports. Because guess what? When the Eagles, my favorite football team, lose tomorrow, there's still another Sunday. And they can lose again, right? But in politics, if you lose, that might be your last election, right? And you're not going to have any power. You're not going to be able to do good. So there is a lot about winning and losing. I just want to give a couple comments, which I think are very indicative of that group of 220. Now, I think you could make a very strong argument that the second most powerful Republican, even more powerful than Mr. Pence, who's often, with his wife in prayer, would be Mitch McConnell. And when asked this kind of question, here's how Mitch responded. The future will take care of itself. Well, he's absolutely right, except, Mitch, maybe you could do something to help the future of the Americans who are going to be homeless, who are going to be out of work, who are going to be these other things for this thing you won't pass, to give them some money, which as Americans they deserve, to be able to live another day. But you're right, the future will take care of it if you do nothing. You're right. The two, they're going to be interesting. I'm going to really follow them. One I know, when I say no, I have fun with. Paul, I think it's Gasser of Arizona and Mo Brooks of Alabama. Now, I just want to kind of follow them to see, at least they haven't followed either one, to see how, we're never going to know why they say that Donald Trump won. But I loved this one by Senator Roy Blunt from Missouri. Now, we've got to parse this. So when asked, is Joe Biden president-elect? Here's what Senator Roy Blunt answered. There is no official president-elect. The president-elect will be the president-elect when the electors vote for him. Technically, that's right? But always before in America, we've looked at it and said, well, that's going to be a fait accompli, right? And so you were able to give the incoming president the courtesy of getting a running start, to use a cliche. Well, so again, it comes back. What are these 220 doing? I'm going to suggest very strongly to their faces, if they want to come visit me, or if they'll let me into the Senate or the Congress once COVID is over, I'm going to suggest to them very simply this. They put their own personal interests ahead of that of the country. And once you do that, I think you forego your rights to represent the country. And the big problem, one of the big problems with the government is, does Mitch McConnell represent Kentucky? Or does he represent the entire country? And sometimes the interests of Kentucky are not the interests of the entire country. Well, supposedly senators, at least, are supposed to be able to say, well, it's not good for my state. But okay, it is good for the country. So what are those, those 220? I'm sorry. They may be nice guys. They may go to church on Sunday. They may think they're doing the right thing. They may even be the kind of guys that I do want to play, a pick up some game with, or I do want to talk to. But right now, man, I don't see other answer than you're putting your own self-interest. And I'll leave with this thought. It's exactly the same as people that won't wear masks. You're putting your own self-interest, your own false idea of freedom, and saying, yes, what I want is more important than what you want, and it's more important than the common good. And they're one and the same right now.
Ryan, would you like to finish up with anything?
Sure. I see Anthony Davis said he wants to play hardball and he's on the blue team. And we were talking a bit earlier about, playing hardball versus not. And, I do say that I think that I spent 2.5 years of Trump's presidency making Facebook posts that would get thousands of views. I would get news commentators on there occasionally. I mean, I was getting all kinds of people. It was nuts. And I indiscriminately friended anyone on Facebook, let them come in. My wall was a cesspool of whatever. As long as you didn't cuss, your posts wouldn't be deleted. I mean, it was like everything. And I talked with people. I tried to do the highbrow thing. I tried to, insult people back. I tried everything that I could figure out what to do. And I changed precisely 0 minds, I'm confident. Now, there's always the chance that someone silently read what I wrote and changed their mind. I can't measure that. I can only measure it based on interactions. And I didn't change anybody's mind for 2.5 years. So I stopped doing it, and I removed tons of people. I probably removed over 1,000 people total in the various unfriendings that I've done. I do think that it's possible to get through to people, though. I just think that social media is not the place. One of the reasons I like coming on this show is I can talk with you all and, like having different perspectives and stuff within the echo chamber that, this, show is about. We're not letting Trump supporters come on here and talk with us because it's a waste of time. Right. But we also do not all agree on everything all the time. And I think that some of it for me is just relearning how to have that, because it is very difficult to speak to somebody who wants to shoot you. It's like I could disagree with you all day, but I know that you will kill me if enough of the government says you won't go to jail for it. You'll shoot me because you don't like what I have to say. Somehow I'm the snowflake. I don't understand that, but so for me, there is a point where dialogue with other people isn't worth it. And, so for me, that's kind of where I'm at this point. And I am still struggling to look for a way to reach out to people who have those abusive opinions. And I just think at the end of the day, Trump has emboldened a lot of people to have abusive opinions. And it's going to take a generation to calm a lot of it down. Mm-hmm. And I think the best thing that I can do is not fan the flames further. So that's why I stopped making political posts about why I think you're an idiot for supporting
Dave,
Trump,
what Ryan says really basically says to us that we won't survive to that age of enlightenment, so to speak. We'll never.
You know what, Brian?
Sadly.
I just want to say something. I really don't care. And I don't mean that, like, I really don't care about it. Of course I care. But you know who I want to see a better world for? There's actually 2 people, not just
your grandchildren. I know that.
Your grandchildren.
One is going to be 13 and one is going to be 11. And I know this. I don't want to leave America if I can, feeling that they're better off in Australia than they are in America. So I will try my best to do what in limit I can to do that. And Brian, you're going to do it, and Brian, you're going to do it, and George is doing it, and a lot of people do it. The only thing, there is a ray of hope, I think, in this. Maybe. We know what America was like with 4 years of Donald Trump, correct? We know what it was like on all sides.
Yeah.
We don't know what it's even going to be like on day one with Joe Biden there. We can speculate. We can figure. So, I would like to say, let's give Joe Biden 2 years. And on this night, like an anniversary,
if he
let's
survives,
come back. He'll survive. Okay. I mean, he'll survive. All right. I mean, unless he's.
We may have Kamala Harris too.
Well, whatever.
And that's fine. I'm just saying.
No, I understand that, but I'm just saying, I want to see what America is like. I've seen what it's like under Barack Obama, and I liked what I saw. But apparently, a lot of people didn't. And that may be one of the reasons, and it's race. Okay, it's just blatant
absolutely.
Racism. Why Donald
If you
Trump
didn't like President Obama, there's something wrong with you.
I know. But now you come on, and now I want to see what it's like having actually, and Ryan and Brian, I don't know if you agree with this, but in many ways, in the important ways, which are character and stature, Joe Biden is the complete antithesis of Donald Trump. Right? So let's see what happens. And I would urge all my radical friends out there and those who agree with Brian tonight, and Brian articulated a position which many people hold, we need our pound of flesh, but let's just give a little bit of time to see, because I'm going to tell you this. The most certain thing I'm going to say is what I'm going to say next, and then I promise to shut up. America will have a better president than Donald Trump when Joe Biden takes over. But we have some homeless people that live right next to our complex. I'm not putting Joe Biden down. He'll be a great president, I believe. But if I were to take any one of those homeless people and put him in the White House tonight, as soon as they took a shower, and I'm not making light of their condition, they live on the street, they would be a president than Donald Trump. So it's not really hard. So that's not really fair what I'm saying about Joe Biden. I'm just saying I'm looking forward to the Joe Biden presidency. I want to give it some time, and then we'll revisit it.
Right. Hear, hear. Well, gentlemen, it's 9 minutes of the bewitching hour. I know Ryan has a hard stop at 11. We actually were on close to 3 hours tonight. I'd say 2.5 because it took us a while to get on. And a lot of things happened behind the scenes, but I think we had a show. I have a few flaws that I have to deal with during the show and deal with it next time. But I think in general, we accomplished what we needed to accomplish today. So I want to thank both of you. I want everybody to understand that thank you, Keith. We intend to have 2 shows a week, a very short show and a longer show. So you'll see perhaps a live show and an edited show. You won't see 2 live ones. We're going to experiment and see if we can have a cleaned up show, so to speak. So thank you. Anything you want to say?
Is that where the Russian hookers are going to be on? Which show are the Russian hookers going to be on? Okay. I want to make sure I don't miss that show.
Do you want to end on a lame joke that I had made up earlier?
Absolutely.
Okay, here we go.
All right, here we go. I did one last time I was on. I'll do another one. So, if you cut a tire swing off the tree, what does it turn into? A retired swing.
Ryan, are you sure?
It's like I'm still on CON. Okay.
Are you sure you did a past problem with drugs or alcohol?
I don't know what happened to Ryan on that one. Thank you, Veg.
Take us out of here. Good ending. Good ending,
See
Ryan.
you all later.
I mean,
take care.
I was tempted on putting a laugh track on that, Ryan, but I just can't.
Great.
I can't. You know, it was
Oh, I love
one of
it.
those jokes that was so bad that it approached
Yeah.
being good. Okay. So
Oh,
anyway,
I love
thank you,
the
Veg.
worst
I
jokes
appreciate
the
that.
better.
Okay. We're trying, Veg, to make this a more perfect show. You know, we're getting there. But yeah,
A new
thank you,
host would
everybody.
help.
See you, Keith. Yeah. Well, listen. Hey, listen. You screwed up trying to come in, and you don't want to admit it.
I admit it.
He
I have
couldn't
no
get his
problem admitting
Google
it.
Chrome started. That's why we were late. So if we are late, it's Dave's fault. If I fail to get the right scene, that's definitely my fault. But hey, that's Hollywood. All right. Anyway, we're gonna go to this scene, and hopefully it'll work. Hopefully. I hit the button. Go.
D'un lion, il y a une jolie fille. D'un lion, il y a une jolie fille. Elle est jolie, parfaite en beauté, qu'elle a charmé. Elle a charmé le cœur d'un grenadier. Bon grenadier, amène-moi dans ta chambre. Bon grenadier, amène-moi dans ta chambre. Oui, dans ma chambre, je t'emmènerai et je te donnerai. Et je te donnerai le cœur d'un grenadier. Et l'autre amant qui est à la porte qui écoute. Et l'autre amant qui est à la porte qui écoute. Croisant ses bras, jetant la vue au ciel, se dit grand Dieu. Se dit grand Dieu que je suis